It had been a long time since the knight had hunted a vampire, and yet this one disappointed him. The holy knight gripped Eugene by the hair and lifted his weakened body from the mud as rain poured relentlessly from the sky. Eugene's arms had already been severed. He struggled uselessly, his broken body swaying in the knight's grasp. The knight looked down at him with cold amusement. He mocked the creature's weakness. He accused him of the blood he had spilled, of the lives taken during his desperate escape. Eugene could no longer speak. Most of his blood had already drained from his body. The only reason he remained alive at all was because he had drunk the blood of dozens of humans during the 6 months he spent running. Had he been captured on the first day, he would have died instantly. The knight revealed the truth with a smile. He had allowed Eugene to roam intentionally. The hunt had been prolonged to spread fear, to glorify the church, and to immortalize his own name as a righteous executioner. Then the judgment was delivered. A silver blade swept across Eugene's neck. Blood scattered into the rain. Eugene's vision faded. His life drained away along with the warmth in his body. And in his final moments, regret consumed him. Regret for hiding like a beast in the mountains. Regret for being weak. Regret for fearing blood. Regret for never challenging those stronger than himself. And with those regrets, the vampire Eugene died. Darkness followed. Then Eugene awoke. Cold air filled his lungs. Darkness surrounded him. He was alive. He touched his body in disbelief. His neck was intact. His limbs were whole. No wounds remained. He stood inside a familiar cabin, the cabin he had built as a child. A calendar hung on the wall, marked with countless small symbols, carved day by day through the years. 12 years and 192 days. It was the past. Eugene had returned to a time before his fall, before his escape, before his execution. This was not a dream. He had been given a second life, and this time he would not live in fear. 5 days remained until the event that would change his fate forever. 5 days to prepare. Under heavy clouds, Eugene left the cabin, hidden beneath layers of dark clothing. Even without sunlight, day still weakened vampires. He moved carefully through the forest, guided by his heightened senses. This time would be different. This time he would not run. He crossed the mountains and reached the wetlands by nightfall. The forest fell silent beneath the coming storm. Stepped into the wetland. The surface of the water suddenly erupted. A massive monster burst forth, its form larger than a bull, its jaws wide with killing intent. But Eugene was faster. He leapt above the snapping maw and drove his dagger into the creature's eye. The beast convulsed violently, attempting to crush him beneath its enormous body. The beast bites his body in half and dragged him underwater. And in his final moments, regret consumed him. Regret for hiding like a beast in the mountains, regret for being weak, regret for fearing blood. When his suffering was about to end, Eugene bit the beast. Blood flooded out, and Eugene drank. The transformation began immediately. Bones realigned, flesh restored itself, pale broken skin regained its vitality. Thick black hair flowed across his scalp. His body stretched taller, leaner, stronger. Muscles formed where weakness once lived. Under the pale glow of the moon, Eugene stood silently over the monster's broken corpse. He then turned to dispose of the corpse. That was when he noticed it. A faint red glow pulsing beneath the monster's hide was a monostone, not green, not small, but red and the size of his thumb, a treasure that could buy a kingdom in the human world. Eugene raised it carefully. And then a voice echoed inside his mind. Eat it! A burning surge blasted through his body, hotter than the monster's blood, violently powerful. The energy crashed into his chest like a meteor. In seconds, his entire body was wrapped in a seamless, living armor, the same shell as the monster he had slain. In shock, he willed it to vanish. The shell melted into his skin. He willed it back. It reformed instantly. A slow, dangerous smile formed on his lips. A faint blue glow flickered within the bushes. A firefly, or so it seemed. A shrill voice suddenly rang out, mocking the dead beast, celebrating its fall. Eugene snapped toward it. The glow revealed a tiny humanoid figure with 4 glowing wings, a spirit. It froze when their eyes met. A vampire was not supposed to see spirits, unless the spirit realized the truth instantly. Its arrogance vanished. Fear replaced it. Eugene captured it in a single motion. The spirit begged for its life in hysterical panic. Through trembling words, it revealed the truth. This wetland had once been its domain. The monster had enslaved it for 15 years. Eugene released his grip. The spirit bowed again and again, stammering gratitude. It fled, then rushed back moments later, offering clean water made from its own power. Eugene refused. The spirit panicked, offering more, faster, purer. Eugene turned his back on it. Scram! And the little spirit vanished into the night. Eugene did not intend to take the spirit with him, but in the end, he did. The water spirit introduced herself as Miriam, though her method of producing water was deeply unpleasant. Her ability itself was priceless. Drinkable water, anywhere, anytime. More importantly, she was invisible to everyone except him. He made his decision. He would go to the town of Broadwin. The chief of Broadwin was enjoying a quiet evening when his son burst into the house in panic. A boar lay dead outside the town walls, freshly delivered. For over a decade, a red-eyed monster had lived near the mountain beyond the town. It rarely approached the village. It never attacked anyone, and every few months it left behind hunted animals, almost like an offering. But this time was different. A boar had been delivered only 15 days after the last deer. As the chief turned back toward his home, he froze. Red eyes stared at him from beyond the fence. The monster stood there, larger than before, calling to him. Fear crawled up his spine, but curiosity outweighed terror. The creature had never harmed them. Slowly, the chief approached. The monster spoke. It asked to be invited inside, and with trembling caution, the chief allowed it. Under the pale moonlight, the monster revealed its face. The chief expected something grotesque. Instead, what he saw stole his breath. The monster looked human. More than that, unnaturally beautiful. Eugene told him he had been sick, poisoned, that he had stayed away to prevent spreading the illness. Now he claimed he was cured. He promised that while he would not visit the town often, he would help if they ever needed him, and then he left. Miriam didn't understand why Eugene had revealed himself, but Eugene already knew the future. In a few days, mercenaries would arrive in Broadwin. They would come to take a boy to the castle of Lord Tywin, and on that day, every villager would die. In his past life, Eugene had never even known the incident had occurred. This time, he would not ignore it. For 3 days, Eugene prepared. 8 figures appeared on the distant hill. Mercenaries, poorly equipped, all light armor, weak formation. 3 of them carried real weapons, short swords, shields, and maces. The rest were little more than thugs with daggers and clubs. Eugene's eyes locked onto the 3 leaders. One breath, one instant. He dropped from the tree. The dagger struck first, sliding cleanly into an unprotected throat. His claws struck next, ripping across a screaming face. 2 bodies hit the dirt before the others even understood what had happened. 6 remained. Their screams had only just begun. Here, in the middle of nowhere. Before the last mercenary could react, Eugene moved. The youngest warrior barely had time to draw his short sword before black-scaled arms tore through his chest. Long claws pierced straight through his heart. His eyes widened in disbelief and then went empty. Panic exploded through the remaining mercenaries. 3 broke and ran instantly. 2 others, fueled by terror and desperation, charged in. One hurled a mace embedded with jagged metal. Eugene deflected it with his armored arm and drove his dagger through the attacker's jaw, sending him crashing into the dirt. Another fell seconds later beneath his claws. In the span of a few breaths, most of the mercenaries lay dead. Only one remained, blinded, bleeding, crawling in terror. Timothy, the real mastermind. Through broken sobs, Eugene learned the truth. The mercenaries had planned to murder the entire village. They intended to frame the dead boy as a lord's bastard and erase all witnesses, including their own young recruits. Greed had destroyed everything. Greed had destroyed him once, and now it would end them. Timothy begged. He swore he would live quietly. Eugene answered by driving a single black claw into his skull. The night fell silent once Eugene did not truly need sleep. But before leaving everything behind, he rested for a few hours, just in case. At dawn, he packed quietly. Clothes, weapons taken from dead mercenaries, bundled leathers from hunted beasts, a simple tent, a boy of 15 or 16. Brown-haired, quiet, disciplined. He carried himself like someone who had worked the fields all his life. The chief handed Eugene a sealed letter meant for Lord Tywin. Then the farewells began. Children shouted, promises were made, dreams were spoken aloud, and without fanfare, Eugene stepped onto the road with the boy beside him, not as prey this time, but as escort, for the first time by his own will. After half a day of walking, the land began to change. A proper village appeared beyond the ridge, vast compared to tiny Broadwin, but something surprised Eugene more than the scenery. Philide could read. His mother had taught him before she died, so Eugene made a decision. Philide would teach him. The silent boy nodded eagerly, unaware that he had just become the first person in centuries to teach a vampire how to read. As they traveled, Philide studied Eugene from behind. The black clothes, the mask, the unnatural stillness, the strength beneath every step. The children of Broadwin had called him the red-eyed monster. Yet now, this same monster was his protector. Philide did not know whether to fear him or trust him. The road bent between tall boulders and thick brush. That was when Eugene stopped. The air had changed. 5 men stepped out from behind the rocks. Robbers, blood-stained clubs, rusted maces, wide grins. They demanded everything. Eugene answered with motion. In one step, he closed the distance. Steel flashed. The first head fell before the body realized it was dead. The second and third followed before screams could form. Silence broke into chaos. The final 2 ran. They did not make it far. 2 clean strikes, 5 bodies, 5 heartbeats. The road was quiet again. Eugene examined his blade under the sunlight. Even the best weapon taken from the mercenaries was still lacking. It was not enough. Not for what was coming. He turned back. Philide stood frozen, pale, terrified, awed. Eugene asked him what was wrong. Philide could not answer, because in the span of a single breath, the knight who walked beside him had slaughtered 5 men without hesitation, without mercy, without effort. And for the first time, Philide truly understood. The world beyond the village was not kind. It was not gentle, and the man escorting him through it was something far more terrifying than a knight, but also perhaps his only chance at survival. They moved through the market, where skins and hides were displayed in towering heaps. Eugene offered his leathers to a red-bearded merchant named Gev. The man blinked at the mask and the faint red glow beneath, but his interest sharpened when he saw the quality of the pelts. After a quick, businesslike appraisal, a fair price was struck. Enough coin for sturdier boots, gloves, and a proper robe. Eugene bought what he needed without ceremony. A long black cape of treated hide that promised to block sunlight, a helmet that hid his face, a better short sword. The purchases altered his silhouette. Now he looked like a wandering mercenary or free knight, not a scavenger from the woods. Philide's respect deepened. The chief's simple faith had been one thing. The market's acknowledgement was another. For the boy, Eugene's sudden competence reinforced the idea that he had been placed under the protection of someone exceptional, perhaps dangerous, certainly competent. That night, by a small fire, Eugene learned letters as Philide guided his hand. Miriam fussed and flailed. Spirits did not much enjoy alphabets, but Eugene found the rhythm of shapes and sounds easier than he expected. He read aloud the chief's letter to Lord Tywin, practicing cadence and formality until the boy smiled in genuine approval. Their brief camp was not quiet for long. Eugene sensed movement. A set of 6 measured footfalls, the rumble of cartwheels, the metallic scent of chain and oil. Ahead, 2 carts crested the ridge. 6 men followed them, mercenaries but of a different weight than the roadside thugs. Chain beneath leather, confident shoulders, a leader who wore kit like armor and business both. They were not the clumsy brigands Eugene had already cut down that day. He straightened, the night's lessons and the wetland's shell still humming in him. Philide trembled beside him. Miriam peeked from the leather pouch with wide eyes. From the ridge, the leader called out in a friendly tone and raised a hand, an ordinary greeting that carried the weight of a different world. Eugene watched them approach. This was no longer a test of stealth or guile. This was the first meeting with professionals. The mercenaries called a polite greeting across the fire, and Eugene answered in kind. A tall man stepped forward, steady, practiced, asking the routine questions, the boy's identity, their destination. Eugene replied calmly, truthfully. "Lord Tywin's castle," he said. "Coincidence," the captain replied. replied. "We're headed there too. Share the camp? We'll spare food and water." A brash youth muttered protest, and the captain's temper snapped. One hard blow felled the insubordinate mercenary like a log. The leader bowed with an apologetic smile and introduced himself as Partepany. As the mercenaries settled, hushed gossip reached Eugene's ears. One man, still uneasy, argued that the knight might be an impostor. No horse, no proper armor, too quiet. Another pointed to Eugene's robe, lycanthrope leather, and the fact he read the chief's letter without falter. Practicality triumphed over suspicion. The expensive hide and cultivated manners swayed most to believe. Eugene watched their faces as they spoke of Lord Tywin. The Lord, they murmured, clung to life by means of mana stones. Dungeon spoils poured into the noble's body, yet his condition barely improved. If Tywin was nearer death than rumor suggested, the politics awaiting at the castle would be dangerous indeed. At Eugene's movement, the men's attention refocused. He removed his helmet. Silence. Then a ripple of astonishment. Beneath the helm was a face the camp had not expected. Sharp, beautiful, in a way that startled the rugged mercenaries. Their doubts melted, replaced by a new current of appraisal. Partek himself was satisfied. Lavan, the earlier troublemaker, could only stare and mutter. The captain's lessons followed. Stay prudent, avoid unnecessary fights, and remember that true strength was often quiet. If a man attacked a knight unprepared, the price would be death. The younger mercenaries listened as much out of habit as fear. The conversation turned to dungeons and the strain on noble coffers. Coin and risk were everything. Phalid watched Eugene with a stunned, almost worshipful gaze, his cheek still flushed from the firelight. The boy had been told to fear knights, predators in human form, but here, standing before him, was a protector whose calm certainty unsettled as much as it reassured. Miriam, caged in a leather pouch, fussed and promised to be clever and helpful. Eugene opened the pouch. The spirit fluttered free, over-earnest and theatrical, then quickly scolded herself and pledged to be useful. Her antics drew a few amused glances, but the mercenary's eyes returned to business. Miriam was overwhelmed by the sight, babbling excitedly about gargoyles, undead guardians, and future vampire castles. Eugene silenced her and tucked her back into the pouch as they passed the drawbridge. Inside the castle grounds, their arrival caused a stir. Well-dressed nobles and officials gathered near the carts. A man in his early 30s stepped forward with sharp eyes and noble bearing. Chimera Tywin, the eldest son. Bilmoa introduced himself quickly, and the unloading began. While the mercenaries worked, Eugene stepped forward with 2 letters in hand, one taken from the dead mercenary Timothy, and the other written by Chief Gev of Broadwyn. Before Eugene could fully introduce himself, another presence cut through the courtyard. A young knight in a gray surcoat over chainmail approached with soldiers at his back. Bertold Tywin, the second son. The brothers immediately clashed with tense words: authority, succession, pride. Their hostility was open and unmistakable. But the house of Tywin was already divided. Eugene placed the letters into Chimera's hands. Shock crossed Chimera's face as he read. The mercenaries had been wiped out by black wolves, and more importantly, the Lord's illegitimate son had been found. All eyes turned. Phalid stepped forward nervously and bowed. "My name is Phalid." The courtyard erupted in murmurs, some curious, some scandalized, some calculating. Bertel ordered the boy taken inside to be bathed and dressed properly. Bertel turned back toward Eugene. His tone was formal, grateful, but distant. He promised payment and then made his intention clear. Eugene was to leave after. When Eugene requested to meet Lord Tywin, Bertel refused without hesitation. The Lord was too ill. The answer was final, or so it seemed, because Chimera suddenly spoke, and his words overturned everything. What harm was there, he asked, in allowing a man who returned a lost son to meet their father? Silence fell across the courtyard. For the first time since entering the Rose Castle, Eugene's path to the dying lord had opened. Tension burned between the brothers. Bertel reminded Chimera that their dying father remained awake for less than a single hour each day. Chimera only smiled coldly. Then he can meet the knight during that hour. After all, he would be meeting his newly returned son as well. The The air sparked with hostility as the two brothers stared one another down. Then Chimera shrugged as if the matter bored him and turned toward Eugene with a polite expression. He apologized smoothly. He claimed that he had intended to arrange a meeting with the Lord earlier, but now, due to a certain someone, it would be difficult. His eyes flicked directly toward Bertel. Then he left. Eugene immediately understood. Chimera had never intended to help him. He had only used Eugene as a tool to provoke his brother. The path to Lord Tywin through the two brothers was now sealed. That left only one possible route. Felled before Eugene could act on that thought, a powerful voice echoed near the stone stairs along the wall. A massive knight stood there, shoulders broad, leather armor stretched tight across his frame. A long sword rested at one side of his waist, and a heavy rondel dagger hung opposite. Sir Gelfridic, a tournament champion. Bertel responded immediately, addressing him with respect before glancing once more toward Eugene. Then the two knights departed into the main hall together. The gate had closed again, but information began to flow. Partek revealed that Gelfridic had placed third in a tournament held by Count Evergrove, a knight of overwhelming strength, one whose fame would continue to grow. And there was only one reason he had come here: the dungeon. If the expedition succeeded, the knight who led it would gain massive prestige, enough to climb into the ranks of true noble families, enough to abandon this dying territory. But the price was terrifying. At least 40 to 50 monsters, intermediate creatures like trolls and dungeon spiders, and 800 silver coins paid in advance. Failure would mean instant bankruptcy for the Tywin family. That was why the brothers hesitated. And then Eugene spoke the words that made time stop. If they had nothing lined up afterward, would they be willing to conquer a dungeon with him? The room froze. Hands stopped mid-bite. Breath caught in throats, because every mercenary there understood exactly what that question meant. Fortune, fame, and a path drenched in blood.